Well, of course, part of the basic global compact involves an obligation on the part of the wealthier countries to provide assistance to the less developed and poorer nations to make the transition that they have to make, that we all have to make. I think that one of the reasons for the success at Paris is that people both in the developing nations and the industrial nations began to realize that the sharp reductions in cost for photovoltaic electricity, wind electricity, now batteries, and most of all efficiency, all these cost reductions, unexpected in the speed with which they've taken place, is making it easier for every nation to make this transition. And a lot of the money that developing nations will use to navigate this transition is going to be provided by investors who see the opportunity. It's the biggest opportunity in the history of business. But even with that, government to government assistance from the wealthy nations to the poorer nations has to be an essential part of it. It's always been a struggle,
Right.
because the wealthy countries make these verbal commitments and then it's like pulling teeth to get
Right.
them to follow through. And that will be a continuing challenge, no doubt. But I and many others who are citizens of the wealthier part of the world will be in there fighting to make sure those commitments are kept.
Do you see this happening? I mean, the interplay between politics and environment, both of our countries, for example, are going to politics. How do you see this playing out with the changes in government?
Honestly, I think it'll be a continuing struggle. But I do think that two trends will make it ever easier to win this struggle. One is the factor I mentioned. The cost of renewable energy really is coming down
Right.
almost as fast as the cost of computer chips did, as fast as the cost of mobile phones and flat screen TVs. That's exciting, and it makes the whole challenge a lot easier. The second factor that will help contribute to a victory here is that publics around the world are becoming ever more aware of the reality of the climate crisis. Also becoming aware of the opportunity to create jobs and
Yes.
transforming buildings, installing renewable energy, retrofitting industrial and business systems to be more efficient. This is really the most promising source of new employment in an era when we're seeing a decline in the wages of middle income jobs across the board. This is a source of hope, and I think it will lead a lot of nations to really grasp onto this.
Both countries, the Philippines and the United States, the rhetoric doesn't match reality in many instances. And one in the Philippines that I know of is that as we made the pledge at COP21 in Paris, the amount of new permits for coal-fired plants
Yeah.
actually took up 70%
Yeah.
moving forward. How do you react to this? How do you match the aspiration with reality, and what can we do to push it forward?
Yeah, it is an irony, but I would draw a comparison between this period of time in the Philippines and the last decade in the United States. We had proposals on the drawing tables for hundreds of new coal-fired generating plants, and virtually all of them ended up being canceled for a variety of reasons that you can also see beginning to play out here in the Philippines. First of all, people in the areas where these power plants are scheduled to be built are no longer quiet about it. In the United States, also in the Philippines. I've seen it and heard it here.
Yes.
People don't want to live with these levels of pollution. And that's true also, by the way, in China and India, where in China, regardless of the climate pledges, the people are rising up and saying we're tired of seeing our children get sick from all this pollution. The mayor of Beijing said this city's not livable anymore. There's a public demand to shut down the coal-fired plants. So that's one factor. Secondly, the pure economic forces that are unleashed when it becomes cheaper to get electricity from solar panels and from windmills. But the solar panels in particular can be widely distributed. They can be put on parking lots. They can be put on the tops of buildings. They can be put in empty fields on the south-facing hillsides. This is taking off all over the world, and I think that it's going to make it more likely that the Philippines will replicate some of the experience we had in the United States in thinking twice about the proposals for all these coal plants. And by the way, all the coal has to be imported, and it's expensive. And once you build the solar farms, you don't have any fuel costs.
Yes.
So we're in the midst of a revolution. We're right at the cusp of a new historic era.
What did you think when you went to Tacloban?
Oh, my heart was touched. I hope that doesn't sound like a cliche, but I don't have the words to describe the emotional impact. I have been showing pictures of Tacloban for more than 2 years
You have.
now.
Yes.
I have been telling the story without actually having been there myself. So it was like stepping into a reality that I had tried to convey to others without having really seen it in person. So when I was there, it really hit me very hard. Most of all, talking to the survivors and hearing some of the heart-wrenching stories. My gosh, what suffering. One of the secrets of the human condition is that suffering binds us together. I don't know why that is, but it is true. And when you hear and experience the stories that are ever present for them, because they're not just in memory, they're still very much living it, it really has an emotional impact. But I hasten to add, I was very deeply impressed by the strong spirit, the resilience, the commitment to rebuild and to renew lives. And the mayor told me that he saw his #1 mission as lifting the spirit of his people. And it wasn't just words. I saw the effects of it.